Okay, so I've got a bunch of hunting points to make, and I'll be making them mostly out of this here. This is a bunch of heat-treated West Texas chert from around the San Angelo area, and this is about the size I use for spalls for hunting points. Let's see. Three by 2 or 3 by 1.5 inches. Gives me plenty of room. 3 by 2. The smallest spalls I'll use for hunting points. Let's see if I can find one. Probably like this here. I don't know, somewhere around 1.5 inches by 2.25 inches. And I've got some patterns that I go by. I guess I'll just be using this one here. I broke this one a while ago, and I guess I'll just use this as a pattern. But I have other ones that I have the notches made in them so I can locate them the same every time, but I'll just use the first arrowhead as the pattern. This one had some ugly concrete type material in there. It broke off. Anyway, I'll be putting serrations on these points, and excuse me. I've been thinking a lot about serrations and how to define them, and I've been doing a lot of reading over the past year on all kinds of different attributes of arrowheads, and I've come up with some ideas on what I'm going to use to define serrations. And let's just say we have, let's see here, let's just say we have an arrowhead. Now, the way I'm going to define serrations is points that extend past the blade edge. So if you look up close, a serration will stick up and then the blade edge will do this. So there'll be kind of like flat spots in between the serrations. Now on the real thing you'll see this on some of the real artifacts, but you'll also see that sort of thing where the edge has a series of notches in it, very minute notches. I don't consider those true serrations, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to call these indentions. These small notches I'm going to call indentions. And these of course will be the notches. Now a notch will separate the blade from the stem. So that these notches will be the separation point between stem and blade on notched type points, just to differentiate them from the indentions. Now, there are some arrowheads that have very tiny notches that look like just little indentions, but I'll call them notches no matter how big they are or how deep or how wide, as long as they separate the stem and the base from each other. But I won't get into that too much on this video. I'll do some more definitions on this, but for now, if you're taking away from the blade edge and you're making these most people call these notches, I'm going to call these indentions. And if you're taking away material and you're creating a new blade edge here, you have some material projecting out, those are serrations. So that's what I'll call serrations. So I'm going to make some hunting points with serrations like this. And there's a couple other videos out there. One by Ryan Gill. That's pretty good on. He discusses the serrations that he puts on his arrowheads. So I'll try to get through this and see if I can make a proper hunting point out of this small piece. It's a little bit wider than an inch and 1/16. I think I might have enough room, just barely. That's going to be tight, but I'll try it anyway. If it's a little bit smaller, it's okay. And like I said, I've got a bunch. I got a dozen arrowheads to make here in the next couple days. I'll be discussing some other things during this video just to give you an idea of some other definitions I'm working on. I just eliminated the bulb of percussion there. I have a lot of questions about that. How do you eliminate the bulbs? And I addressed that in one of the other videos recently. But I learned how to get rid of that stuff a long time ago, so it's kind of second nature to me. So it doesn't take me very long. But once you get used to it, you know, it's not a big deal. Of course, indirect percussion helps quite a bit because it'll give you the power to knock those off, whereas pressure is not as powerful. Unless, of course, you got arms like Popeye. But anyway. And I tend to make the narrow end the point and the wide end the base, no matter what, no matter what's thicker or which side has the bulb or percussion. I tend to go with a more narrow end is the point, or what archaeologists call the distal end. This is the point or distal. This is the base or proximal. I don't really like the scientific terms, so I'm just going to use base and point. You probably won't hear me say distal and proximal again. Unless I'm doing a definition video. Okay, so the basic shape. Gonna have to be real conservative. I'll try to get through this quickly so I can get to the serration part. Hopefully before 30 minutes is up. And I don't have much daylight left either, so I've got to hurry this up. I need to get rid of that cortex. but I don't want to lose too much width, so I'm going to be really careful. Still kind of curved. Now, hunting points don't have to have really pretty flaking. So I'll make this very basic. Should have known better than that than to hit right next to a step fracture. Oh well. This material, even though it's heat treated, it requires very stout platforms to run long flakes. Just like it would if it was still raw. The benefit of heat treating is because when it's raw, it's almost impossible to run flakes on cleanly. I was hitting above center line on all those, but it's thick enough that I don't have to worry about snapping it. But this stuff snaps easily. I need to run a little bit longer flakes than that. So let's see. I suppose that's good enough as far as flake travel. I need some really stout edges on this material. So you would think that that platform was stout, but I guess it wasn't. really not watching where I'm grinding. I'm just grinding and then seeing what I end up with, and then take some opportunistic flakes. And I'm winding up. I'm hitting it really hard, so I'm starting back further. And by the time I get to the punch, sometimes the workpiece moves or something moves and it doesn't strike. Doesn't strike properly. So there's some of that going on. I think I'm getting this thinned down okay. See, with a cross section like this, it's called plano convex. You're always hitting above center line, and it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different strategy. As far as removing the flakes, you've got to hit really hard, but then you've got to watch very carefully that you don't hit so hard that you break the base, break the point. I'm going to do a little beveling. So I'm not so far above center line. So I think you can see that bevel. I'm brushing this in this direction. To knock off those little projections here. I'm going to switch to a smaller diameter. There's a step right here, so I'm going to try to hit very hard and try to blow through that. It's got to come in from the slightly from the side. I can't hit it directly on. Alright, I keep hitting the camera with the mallet. Little step right there is what I get for not paying attention. They're hard to remove from the tip because you don't have much material to work with. You gotta kind of sneak up on them from somewhere and try to remove the step fracture from the side. I don't know if that made sense, but oh well. So the thickness is pretty good for a hunting point. I'm going to leave most of this original flake surface on here. I'll do some pressure flaking to clean it up. But the majority of the thinning is already done. I guess I could take another thinning flake in here. Get rid of that lump. Right in here. But I won't. I'll just trim this up with a pressure flaker. Let's see what it looks like compared to the other one. I'm not going to have as much on the base. Tip length is pretty good. When I make the serrations, it's going to get smaller too. But I'm going to try to make those serrations small also. So yeah, I have a little bit of room for trimming, but not much. But anyway, it's okay if it's a little bit smaller than the pattern. I'm just going to clean up the edge. I'm going to try not to create too many little step fractures. With a rounded tip like this, it's easy to do it. I'm just using a rounded tip because it grabs the edge easier than the steel spatula. What I call the spatula, or the flattened steel flaker. This slips around a lot, but I don't mind it slipping. It kind of forces you to have a very good edge quality to it, and it doesn't, grab on when you don't want it to. Some of these delicate glass points, if your flaker grabs on really well and you push just a slight bit of, or just a little bit too much pressure will snap your arrowhead in half. Excuse me. So if you get a pressure flaker that really grabs the edge and you're pushing and doing aggressive flake removals, you can snap your whole point in half, or snap the tip off or something. Alright, so I'll drive some pressure flakes try to thin the edge a little bit more so I can more easily do the serrations. We just take care of thinning the base first. I'm doing large flake, small flake, large flake, and then a small one. If you set these up, you don't have to use as much force to remove them, and it's safer because when you're hitting the base, you can easily snap the workpiece. Just a few more thinning flakes. The base is kind of curved, so not sure exactly how I'm going to handle that. I've got some room on this side. It's kind of bowed out, so I'm going to remove some flakes downward to bevel the edge so I can thin this out. Try to remove some of that hump here. It's 29 minutes. So let me shut this off before it shuts itself off, and I'll be right back.